Good morning, folks. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to give people a couple more minutes to come in before we get started. I have a slideshow that I will be presenting, and just for everyone's awareness, this is being recorded. So it will be posted on the Volunteer Maine website after the information session is done. Yes, Britt,
Just want to let you know I'm here.
thank you. I am sharing my screen. Um, Is everybody seeing the um, the presentation? I think you should be, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right, I'm going to get started. Again, I want to thank you all for being here. My name is Lucy Martin. I am the Program Officer, Special Volunteer Initiatives with Volunteer Maine, formerly or currently both known as the Climate Corps Coordinator. And this is an information session about, ooh, is it not in presentation mode? That's odd. There we go. And this is a information session on the Conserve Maine mini grant program statement that Volunteer Maine put out at the beginning of this month. There will be opportunities for questions at the end, so please take note of them and I will answer them at the end of the slideshow. All right, so our agenda. We are going to have a little brief overview of Volunteer Maine, the State Service Commission. We're going to talk a little bit about the Maine Climate Corps, discuss why Western Maine, and then do an overview of the mini grant call for proposals and how to apply to the program statement. And then, like I mentioned, at the end, we will have the opportunity for any questions. So, Volunteer Maine is the state service commission. It seeks to foster and inspire community service and volunteerism to address critical needs in the state of Maine while advancing civic engagement. Volunteer Maine does this by funding and managing service programs, developing managers of volunteers, raising awareness of sector issues, and by promoting service as a strategy. The Maine Climate Corps was established in statute by LD 7507. It is referred to as the program, established within the commission to provide grants, technical assistance, and training to community service corps programs with the mission of responding to the impacts of climate change. Currently, the Maine Climate Corps is configured as a network of programs that engage volunteers and service members in projects that help realize Maine Won't Wait's climate action goals. At its inception, It had a pilot program where it was funded by the state for a single cohort of Corps members that were part of the Down East Community Partnership, and they served as energy navigators. Since then, it has taken shape, as I mentioned, more as a network of programs. And the projects that these Corps members focus on can be in any one of those buckets that you see on the graphic. So public health, transportation, community resilience, housing, education. The coastal zone is defined by NOAA, preservation, and energy. So many of you may be curious as to why Western Maine was a particular focus for this grant. And that is because in 2026, the Conserve Maine grants are funded 75% through a grant from the Betterment Fund, which is a grant-making foundation that primarily invests in projects that focus on small communities in and in Western Maine, specifically those in Oxford, Franklin, and Somerset counties. So to kind of get into some of the nitty-gritty, for eligibility for the Conserve Maine mini grants, you must be a municipal government, nonprofit organization, tribal government, individual community, plantation, township, or unorganized territory in or that serves Oxford, Franklin, or Somerset counties. You have to have a community-centered conservation project that focuses on energy efficiency, environmental education, flood resilience, and or community health. And through the project, you must promote service and volunteerism as a component to increase sustainability of the project. All funded projects must have at least 2 individuals engaging in service. These 2 individuals can be a combination of any of the following categories: interns engaged in service-based projects or service learning, volunteers that commit to specific tasks, whether or not they are stipended, fellows that engage in service projects, and or Corps members from other Corps programs. Please note, nonprofit organizations must include as a supplementary document a letter of support from the municipality where the proposed project will be implemented. For this mini grant opportunity, we plan to allocate up to $30,000 this grant round with a maximum award amount of $10,000. The grants are anticipated to be awarded by mid-August with start dates as early as September 1st and as late as November 1st. Projects can be up to 9 months in duration. For the eligible use of funds, they must be related to the implementation, management, and support of conservation projects that build community action through service and volunteerism to address energy efficiency, environmental education, flood resilience, and community health in Western Maine counties of Oxford, Somerset, and Franklin. The project expenses must support the conservation project and the engagement of volunteers in the implementation, management, and support of the proposed project. These expenses may include things like supplies, travel, indirect costs, venue rental fees, and volunteer support. They may not include staff salaries, fringe benefits, land purchases, or equipment such as vehicle or computer purchases. Part of this mini grant opportunity is that once the grant is awarded, the awardees become members of the Maine Climate Corps network for the duration of their grant. Being part of the Maine Climate Corps network, there are required quarterly meetings, 2 in person and 2 virtual. A brief quarterly update highlighting current program successes and challenges is expected before each of those quarterly meetings, which will then be shared with the network to identify collaboration opportunities. There are also opportunities for 4 non-required virtual mid-quarter meetings. And when you are part of the network, you would also be eligible for technical assistance and professional development funds, also through this Betterment Fund grant opportunity. Anya, I see your question and I will answer it at the end. Thank you. So I'm going to run through really quick the application for the Conserve Maine uh, mini grants, and then I will answer all those questions at the end. So the application deadline is July 29th by 5 p.m. local time. If you get it a little later. Any questions following this information session can be submitted to me at lucy.martin@maine.gov, and the responses will be posted to the Volunteer Maine website on a rolling basis after those received during this information session. Award notifications are anticipated to be approximately mid-August, and the grant start date, as I mentioned, can be anywhere from September 1st to November 1st, 2026. And the projects can be anywhere up to 9 months in duration. I've included the application survey link here, and as well as a PDF copy of that survey so that folks can take a look at the questions before submitting, since they are not it's hard to go back and forth when you're in the Survey Monkey. So for the application, you will include the first criteria is general information. So you need to make sure that your organization falls under one of the required categories: municipal government, nonprofit organization, tribal government, individual community, plantation, township, or unorganized territory. You will have to select which counties the project will serve, Oxford, Franklin, or Somerset, and identify the population characteristics of those communities, such as race, gender, age, socioeconomic status. You will also have to identify which of the grant focus area priorities the project aligns with: energy efficiency, environmental education, flood resilience, and/or community health. Identify which category of individual engaging in service your project will utilize. Again, there must be at least 2, but they can be a mix of any of the following 4 categories: interns engaging in service-based projects, volunteers that commit to specific tasks, whether or not they are stipended, fellows that engage in service projects, and Corps members from other Corps programs. This is kind of the bulk of the application, so the scope of work. So we will ask for a project description as well as a project timeline. And to kind of give you an idea of what those things include, I'm just going to pull up the description. So project description, we would ask you to describe the proposed project, but specifically, it's important to number and break down each specific task, including the steps needed to complete each task and the outputs and outcomes that will result from each task. And this can be maximum 1,000 words. We really don't, for the entirety of the scope of work, we really don't want to put too much pressure on this, but to get a really good understanding of what the project is going to entail and to showcase that the applicant and the grantee has put a lot of thought into the project. So the project timeline would be describing the timeline for completing the project, outlining different tasks, their expected completion. Can be a range. It can be things like 1 to 2 weeks as opposed to a specific date. Describe the need for the project. So why is it a community priority? The project outcomes, from the project. So things like number of volunteers engaged, the events that were planned, and the climate or conservation efforts that were completed, etc., or would be completed. The project management component asks that the applicant describe the roles and responsibilities that will be assigned to project partners. And finally, the approach to community access and engagement considerations describe how the project will engage with community members during the development of the scope of work and continue to collaborate with them during the project implementation. It's important to identify any specific stakeholders or community partners that you would be interested in working with, including underrepresented populations and those vulnerable to climate impacts. The final criteria is the budget proposal. Ooh. So there's an example budget worksheet in the program statement that you can use for this. It should include the line item and the anticipated cost. As previously mentioned, eligible costs are limited to those incurred during the grant period. A budget narrative accompanying the worksheet is not required. But if you would like to provide it in order to justify individual line items, that is a feature that is available on the application portal through SurveyMonkey. Finally, supplemental materials. So as I said, nonprofit organizations are required to provide a letter of support from the municipality that the nonprofit organization will be serving that indicates that the municipality is aware and in agreement with what the nonprofit is proposing. Additional optional supplementary materials can be things like pertinent maps, imagery, estimates of costs from vendors or project partners, or other essential brief supporting documents. Again, we don't want this to be super long or super intensive, just showcasing that there was thought put into the project and what the expectations are. Terms and conditions, the grant recipients will enter into a written agreement with Volunteer Maine. Also noting that this is an advanced payment grant, so you will get the money up front. And then within 30 days after the end of the grant period, the recipient will provide Volunteer Maine with a final report that includes a summary of those eligible expenses with receipts and justification, and a summary of the project that includes things like what was done, where, when, how much was accomplished, how many volunteers were engaged and or recruited, what climate issue the project helped address, and what impact the project had on the issue. Some tips for a strong application, clearly defined project, attainable deliverables, outcomes and timeline, and identified roles and responsibilities that encourage service and volunteerism, and an accurate budget that demonstrates applicable use of funding. Okay, that is the end of my little brief presentation. Anya, I am happy to answer your question. And for indirect costs, the definition that we are using
Can you please
is,
repeat the question? Because I'm
oh,
not sure if can everybody?
good.
Oh, I see Anya wrote it in the thing. Apologies, but yes, maybe repeat.
No, I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Britt. So Anya asked in the Q&A, can you define indirect costs? Does that include overhead? And so what we are using as the definition for indirect costs is that it can include overhead, but based on the statement of work that we mentioned earlier, it cannot include staff salaries, fringe benefits, land purchases, or equipment. Does that answer your question, Anya? I think I can let you talk.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Anya. I'm just gonna let everybody talk. There's not very many people in here. Okay, everybody is allowed to talk if you have questions.
I have another question if no one else has one.
Please, Anya.
Um, for those things that you shared on the last slide with the reporting and
Yep.
also the additional trainings and things, do you have an estimate of, like, as we're thinking about putting together a work plan for this, do you have an estimate of how much time these tasks might take?
In regards, sorry, so the reporting will be after you're done with the project.
Okay.
Yeah. So you would submit your proposal. If you were awarded the funds, you would go through that whole project, and at the end is when within 30 days we'd ask for a summary of the eligible expenses and the receipts, and then just basically a readout, right, of the project and what it accomplished, something that we can show to the Betterment Fund, show to our funders, show to the public, of what great work was done using these funds. Yeah, Britt?
Thank you, Lucy. In addition to that, there is the requirement of joining the Maine Climate Corps network, as you saw earlier. So there is a time commitment for that. So the duration of the grant is 9 months. So it might overlap with 2 to 3 of the quarterly meetings. Those meetings are 90 minutes in length. Is that correct?
Yes, the quarterly meetings are 90 minutes long.
So they're 90 minutes in length, and then also a written update. It's probably a few sentences of your challenges and a few sentences of your um,
Success.
successes. So it shouldn't take more than a half an hour to prepare that. So that is the only requirement in terms of time. So you would have to budget in, I would say, roughly like a day of LOE over the course of the grant to participate in those meetings. One of them is in person, so that would one of those would be in person, maybe two, depending again on the term, like the when your grant starts and stops. Because the quarterly Maine concert Climate Corps network meetings are two in person, two online. So that is something you'd want to budget in. So I'd say roughly a day is the amount of time for participation in any activities. And then as Lucy says, it's at the end that the reporting comes.
Did that answer your question? Yeah, okay. Any other questions from folks? Clarifications? And if no questions come up right now, but you start making an application and something comes up, again, you are able to email me at lucy.martin@maine.gov, and I will answer those questions to the best of my ability and then also post them on the Volunteer Maine website so that they are available for everybody else to also reference if need be. All right. Well, that was a good 25 minutes. Um, if there are no further questions, I'm going to end this information session here. Oh, Miriam. Oh, nope, left. Um, and again, this recording will be posted on the Volunteer Maine website, and any further questions that you guys might have about this opportunity, please do not hesitate to reach out. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Great. And now